How does a fun family hike become a real nightmare? Let's take a closer look at things you can do to help make your day hike in the Smoky Mountains as safe and fun as possible. Welcome to Bear Facts, where we explore the Smoky Mountains one bear fact at a time. Should I pour on mosquito repellent? What shoes should I wear? Are shorts okay to hike in? These are all very good concerns and questions we see a lot of first-time hikers ask about when visiting the Smoky Mountains. But there are questions that many people don't think to ask about when they are going on vacation, like what should you and your family do to be safe and as prepared as possible for even a short hike in the Smokies? Or what planning can you do to prevent the worst case scenarios? Though this isn't something many people want to talk about when planning a vacation, it's important to keep in mind that the Smoky Mountains can be dangerous, and it's always a good idea to plan a little before taking that hike. Last year alone, the Smoky Mountains saw over 3 million visitors, and the Smoky Mountains were also labeled as one of the deadliest parks in the country. And the sad thing is that many of the deaths were related to reckless driving or drownings. The roads in the parks are well maintained, but people don't often realize just how dangerous driving fast on these roads can be. Add in some snow and ice, and the Smoky Mountains can be absolutely treacherous. But road fatalities aren't the only danger. Slips, trips, and falls also make up for a massive percentage of injuries. On average, there are a little over 100 to 120 search and rescue teams sent a year into the Smoky Mountains. And the statistics say that about 80% of the cases are for injuries and only 6% for lost hikers. But people do get lost and people do get injured. And many of the situations were very preventable. I'm not saying that all of the situations were preventable. Sometimes it's just bad luck. You can't prevent a freak windstorm knocking a tree down on your tent or a bear that made you its next target. And sometimes you just slip. Just this last April, an experienced hiker went missing for 3 days. Luckily, they found the severely injured and dehydrated hiker before it was too late. But things like this happen. And thankfully, not very often, especially when you take into the account the high level of tourism and traffic in the mountains. It's really amazing when you think about it. In fact, lost hikers are very seldom actually happen. Since 1934, there are only 5 documented cases of lost hikers who were never found. When you think of the sheer size of the park, with over 522,000 acres of land with hundreds of miles of trails between, it's amazing that more people aren't lost every year. But it isn't the lost hikers that are the main concern. It's the injuries and preventable mishaps that can be the real concern. First, let me be clear that I'm focusing on planning and talking about day hikes in this video. If you're planning a 2 or more day hike, you will need to do a lot more planning and preparation. Instead, I want to address those shorter hikes that people get into trouble in. These are hikes that will take anywhere from 3 to 8 hours. A great example of a day hike is Alum Caves or Chimney Tops or even LeConte. Most people will not consider Clingmans during the summer a day hike, and the reason being that you're on a fully paved trail with little to no chance of getting lost or encountering wildlife, other than a bug or two. That, and it's less than a mile both ways. But don't get me wrong, I didn't say Clingmans was an easy mile walk, but for the healthy average hiker with decent pairs of shoes and a water bottle will get you there and back with little concern. When I talk about a day hike, I'm talking about short hikes between 3 and 15 miles long. Though 15 miles is stretching it for some. These are trails that have little to no paving, and there is the possibility of actually getting lost. Many people don't realize that a day hike can be as dangerous as a 7-week cross-country trek. Because the mountains are considered quite safe by most standards, and many people are doing short, populated day trails, they don't think to put much thought into planning. Don't get me wrong, I've made those mistakes, so I know how easy it can be. It's only a 3-mile hike. What could go wrong? I don't need to bring water. These shoes will be just fine. Or the best one yet, I don't need Band-Aids. Let's just say that kind of thinking has caused me to have many miserable trips. So what are some things that you can prepare for, and how can you prepare for them? Well, the good thing is that there's a lot of things people can do, and most of these things don't involve heavy equipment or even special gear. Most of the preparations you can make involve very little planning or thought. But these little things can make a huge difference if you end up in some of these situations. The first and most important thing to make sure you do before going on a day hike is to let someone know you're going. Even if you're heading out with a team of people, let someone who isn't on your trip know where you're going and when you plan on returning. So this takes me to the next piece of advice. Stay on the trails. Don't leave the trails for any reason. The biggest cause for most lost hikers is that they leave the main trail. They either need to go to the bathroom or choose to explore something else. Once you leave the trail, everything looks the same, especially if you aren't near water. And this is something that many people don't realize. Sound doesn't carry well in the mountains. You can be 20 feet from another person and not hear them. But if that doesn't scare you enough to keep you on the trail, keep in mind that once you leave the trail, the possibilities of meeting a copperhead or rattlesnake go much higher. Though there is a good chance you will encounter snakes on the trail, you have a better chance of spotting them off the trail. The snakes don't want to be near you any more than you want to be near them. But snakes are very common in the Smokies. And because they're so common, you should keep your eyes open. When stepping over logs, peek around them first. Or if you have to leave the trail, be vigilant. If you have young children, talk with them about mountain safety, like where and when it's safe to run. Climbing and running is very dangerous on some of the trails. There are trails that see sharp turns around bends with loose gravel and sudden drops. And there are places where the rocks are piled up and look like a fun obstacle course. They are also a perfect place for snakes to take a nap. And the rocks are also often covered with moss and algae, making them very slippery. Just last year, a young boy fell off a cliff when trying to climb some rocks. The EMT needed to come up and rescue the youth, and the family's vacation in the Smoky Mountains ended in the ER. Kids will be kids, and we should encourage exploration and playing, but children need to learn that there are risks. Talk with your children about those risks and the dangers they might encounter. Make a plan for the worst case scenario, like what should they do if they get lost or turned around. I would suggest having walkie-talkies for each party member. Your children will love them, and they're a good way to stay in contact. Cell phone reception is almost non-existent in the park, and I would definitely make sure you bring a phone and download a map of the park through Google Maps. The GPS will still work even if you don't have cell service. And if there is an injury, you can let the responders know your exact location. Telling the 911 dispatcher you are next to a tall tree isn't very helpful. Okay, so let's talk about the next most important thing to do for a day hike. Dress appropriately. I have seen people walking in flip-flops on the trails. Yeah, flip-flops. Let's have some common sense, folks, and give the first responders a little break. You are in the mountains on trails with rocks that don't budge when you fall on them, snakes that bite, and tree roots that attack. And you're wearing flip-flops? I always wear at least sneakers or even better, hiking boots. Shoes with good traction and that are waterproof are going to be the best footwear. You never know if it will rain and the trails get very slippery. Keep in mind that even a 4-foot fall can be an ankle breaker. Imagine a 1,000-foot fall. Also, those walking sticks can be very helpful. I'm hitting that age where the knees just aren't what they used to be, and walking sticks are a lifesaver. The ground is very uneven, and did I mention the attacking roots? Those trees are vicious. And even if you don't have knee issues, they can be good helping you down those steep inclines. We also use them to tap the ground. When walking over logs, snakes tend to hide there and you can't always see them. Or use them when tapping around in areas you plan on sitting and taking a break. Snakes' bites are very uncommon, but why take the chance? When planning your hike, I would also suggest packing a light jacket or layer up. Keep in mind that the upper elevations are always colder by at least 15 to 30 degrees from the lower elevations. Some hikers prefer to always wear pants and long sleeve shirts, but most day hikes on warmer days, shorts and t-shirts will be fine. One of the most important things I always have on my outfits are zippers. I am obsessed with zippers. Losing your keys 2 miles up the trail is not a good way to enjoy your vacation. The last bit of advice I would consider, and something that many people don't think about when it comes to clothing, wear bright neon colors or bring an article of clothing that will stand out. Unless you're hunting or fishing, you need to be visible. This is especially important for children. Lost hikers and children are much easier to find if they have highly visible clothing. Now, I always like to bring a small backpack for any day hike. There are a few essentials that I will bring. 1, a rain poncho. 2, Band-Aids and moleskin for blisters. 3, off or bug repellent wipes, though to be honest, I rarely need them. Higher elevation hikes don't have as many bugs. It's the lower elevations you might want them for. 4, plastic baggies. 5, wipies. You never know. 6, a towel. I'm a sweater, so it usually is around my neck. 7, a charging block and cord. I'm a little paranoid about losing cell phone power. Even though you might not be able to call anyone, you can still use the GPS and stored maps to find your way if you get turned around. But I also like to track my progress. 8, snacks. I like granola bars, trail mix, and other non-perishable items. And 9, water. Lots and lots of water. Now, there are other things that people might want to add to their packs. One is a whistle, a pocket knife, a medical kit, or even extra socks in a Ziploc bag. These are all things that I have added to my bag, but only on the longer day hikes. Another huge concern that people who are hiking the mountains have are about the bears. So, here are the facts. Bears do attack, and there is a high population of bears seen in the Smokies. But almost every attack that has happened in the Smoky Mountain has been on campgrounds or places where food and bears meet. So, there is a huge debate about whether or not you should bother with bear sprays or those bells. Here's my take on the matter, and this is just my take. Don't bother with either one. I've actually encountered a bear on a trail, so I know what happens. The bear looked at me, didn't see a meal, and kept walking. But unless you're eating or trying to take a selfie with a mama bear's cub, and yes, this is a real thing, then I'm not going to worry about the bears. If you encounter a bear, make some noise, don't run, just do your best to stay calm. These bears are very used to people and usually just ignore you. But if keeping bear spray or carrying a bell will make you feel more comfortable, more power to you. In fact, if you choose to hike alone, I would consider carrying bear spray or even pepper spray, though it won't work on bears. I do carry pepper spray because sometimes the most dangerous thing you will encounter on the trails are the two-legged kind. I personally have never had a bad interaction with any other guests in the park. To be honest, I have met some of the nicest, most polite people on the trails in the Smoky Mountains, but people are people, so keep in mind that you are in the middle of nowhere with little to no cell reception around a lot of high cliffs. Try to be polite and remember this one piece of advice. It's legal to carry your weapon into the Smoky Mountain National Park if you have a carry permit. And there are many people who practice this right in the South. And for the most part, people who carry are highly intelligent, conscientious people who know how to handle their weapon and respect the laws. I have never seen another person brandish a weapon in the park, and it's kind of illegal unless for self-defense. An attacking bear might be considered self-defense, but make sure you have a good lawyer and defense, because shooting any bear in the national park is highly illegal. Plus, the bear might just shrug off the bullet and still kill you. So, if you're worried about bears, keep to the bear spray. That way you can stay out of the courts and the bear will still survive. But even if you don't encounter a man-eating bear or gun-toting strangers, there's one other issue that you can't do anything about, but you can prepare for: theft. There have been situations where people's cars have been plundered, and there are unsavory types of people who will remove tires, or even the catalytic converters are cut off. So this goes back to having a fully charged phone and plenty of water. A 3-mile hike can easily turn into a 5 to 10-mile hike in the event something happens to your vehicle and you can't find someone to help. Thankfully, these kinds of things don't happen all that often, but they can happen. And being prepared doesn't make you seem paranoid, just smart. Now, there is the last most important thing I would make sure you do for any length of hike, and that is to bring water. Don't be skimpy either. Water is the one thing that you might need the most. The longer the hike, the more you're gonna need. I will sometimes bring one of those water bladders or camel bags, or just bring a few bottles. I would even keep a few bottles in your vehicle. You never know when you'll get stuck in traffic, and yes, that happens in the park, or you have a breakdown. I've also seen those water purifiers in the store, but I've never tried them, so, if you plan a hike near water source, maybe they'd be helpful? I don't know. Okay, so some of you are now thinking that the Smoky Mountains are the most dangerous place on the planet, and why would you even think of getting out of your car to hike? Well, the truth is that there are actually very few real emergencies that happen in the parks that have to do with hikers. Like I pointed out earlier, it's the car wrecks that get people. And when it comes right down to it, even the accidents that do happen were mostly preventable. The important thing to remember is that to remember caution. You're not in Disneyland. And if you get into trouble, it might be hours before EMT even find out you need it, let alone can rescue you. So stay on the path, stay hydrated, wear good shoes, and make sure someone knows where you are. If you keep to these basics, a day hike in the Smoky Mountains will be one of the most rewarding experiences you will ever have. I hope this video helped you plan your visit to the Smoky Mountains. Please note that we at Bear Facts do not get paid for our videos. You're getting an honest review from our personal experiences. But facts and things change, so please let us know in the comments if you've learned anything new and want to share your experiences. Thanks again for visiting us at Bear Facts of the Smoky Mountains. Please click that like button and subscribe to our